let me let me go for MS Paint. Yeah. So now uh, we can discuss the always energy like parts by part, but I'm not going for any order, but I'm giving the kind of a technical theoretical representation. Okay. So now just now we discussed about the what is always availability, and in the always availability group, what are the backend technology it will use, and in the always availability, what is the availability group, and what is the synchronous and what is the asynchronous, and if you go for 2012, how many 2012 or 2014, how many replicas we need to keep? If it is 2016 onwards, how can we replica we need to keep? So now we can go for one more technical part, uh, how the disaster recovery will help. So initially we discussed, right? So always and easy is giving the disaster recovery. So let we can discuss that disaster recovery part. So this is the one availability group, one server. This server having this server having uh, here. One more thing like I forgot to explain here. Uh, the thing is like how the data is transferring here. There it is. Yes. So here in the discussing rate mirroring synchronous asynchronous, how the data will transfer, right? So the transfer will happen at the endpoints. So mirroring also using the endpoint for transfer, right? So always and also data using from the listener endpoints. If the listener endpoints are not opened, then always in availability communication will fail. So data won't sync. So the mirroring endpoint like endpoints also very easy, like not easy, very important. If you're not properly configured or ports are blocked, then less like always an availability synchronization will fail. Okay, so here what is the port default port numbers for the 5022 is the port number for the always and availability group. Okay, so here also we need some permissions, okay, to create the our communication for endpoint communication. I will explain, okay, later. So this is very important for the uh, mirroring, because in the backend it is using mirroring concept, right? And the mirroring, the data communication will happen through the endpoints, right? So here also endpoints required. Yeah. Now let me jump into the how we can call like a disaster recovery for always and easy. Okay. So the disaster recovery, why we calling it disaster recovery means like so here I have a instance. So here I have a instance. So here I have a databases. Here I have a databases. Here I have a databases. So these databases we are keeping into the dedicated storage like a disk. So we are keeping into the dedicated disk like a EDF something. So we are keeping the data into the respective disk. That may be the log file or a data file. We have the dedicated or disk for these things. And here all we are going to keeping into the one container. All this will all will contain the all will contain the one container. So this container will have the this is the container. Okay, AOAG group name. So it will have, apart from that databases, it have the it have the replica names and listener details added. Okay. So here we keep it. So here what we are doing, we are copying the database to here. Here we are keeping the database here. We are keeping the database here. So we are keeping the database here. So keeping the database, what will happen? This we can see the availability group name, but container we can keep like a secondary. The same name we can here. This is the primary group name like AOAG group. We can see like a G. You can give any name. Okay, we can see like a primary, and this like a we can see like a AOAG group secondary. So here we are copying the database here, and availability group in the primary we can see like a AOAG group primary. The primary we can see in the secondary server we can see like a the group name and secondary. What are the group we have? That container we can see here, but we can see like a secondary. Database will be here, and what will happen? Will happen the so the disk will be storing into the here. Disks are storing into the here. These are the dedicated disks. That is E D E F. So here the thing is like common endpoint. Endpoint will be there. Communication. Communication will happen through the endpoint. And the client access point. The client access point will be DC here. So the always it will connect to the listener. So here listener. So that will presented into the here. Here customer CU see customer or end user or application. Application will come to the listener. So if it is container failover, what will happen? The listener will be same, right? It is not going to change. But the thing is like the group will be moved to here. The secondary we can see like a primary. The primary we can see a secondary. But replica like alias name or listener will be same. Why? Because the listener coming from the listeners coming from the DC. This is how this will have the ELS name with IP address. So the client always connecting with the listener and IP address, which are maintaining the domain control as a computer object. So the client no need to bother about the where the availability group is running. So if it is running here, it will point to the here. If it is failover to here, the entire availability group move to here, and listener will be same. So here no need to change the listener or like application details. No need to change any config files. Why? Because listener always will be same, because the listener always will point into the primary node. If it is failover to here, the group will be failover here. So while moving the group, listener also will failover here. Then application will come to the listener. So this is the advantage of the listener. So listener is a client access point. Client access point means client no need to bother about where the database is sitting. Okay. The thing is like here why the disaster comes, like why it is providing disaster recovery. So if I having the problem with the, suppose like this is the my east US 2 region. My east US 2 region is down. Suppose my east region is down. And then what will happen? What are the resources I have? This will be not accessible. That is okay. Why? Because I have the maintaining the another copies in the, I have maintaining the another copies in the central US. I have maintaining the copies in the central US. Those central copies US, the data disk and log disk presented on the this particular data center. So one region goes down also. I have the copy that is maintaining from the availability technique. The database already presented to the another data center. So this entire region is down also. My server is up and running in the another region. Why? Because my core component, like a data sitting dedicated, right? It is not a shared. So if the region is down also, what are the data keeping it? That will be down. That is okay. Because we are continuously copying the data to the another region that is sitting into the different disk. So that is the reason it is providing the disaster recovery. So it is providing the high availability and it is providing the disaster recovery. So high availability means like my primary server goes up. How can with how can I bring the database with minimal data loss and how can you provide the operational? That is called like a high availability. A disaster recovery means like entire region is down. That time my resource will be available on the other region. So that is called like a disaster recovery. This is disaster recovery achieving from the always availability by what are the resources are keeping. The disk are dedicated, but listener is a shared resource, but that is maintaining the DC. So you may ask, so the where the DC will be located. Suppose my DC is presenting on the East ES2. So that time also my listener will be down, right? So that is the headache from the Windows team. What they will do, what they will do, they will continuously sync the DC to, come on, DC to another data center, or maybe they will restore the backup. So we have a backup. So DC will be taking the backups. So DC will be take the backups, or maybe they will sync the DC to the other data center which we are keeping to here. If it goes down also, they will up the DC from the another data center. So all users and all computers will get online. So the backend, the configurations, the Windows team will maintain. So if you maintain the proper design, the DC is the important. Why? Because if the DC goes down, so our application will go down and we cannot able to log in and we cannot do anything. Why? Because each and every service account that should be running on the domain account, right? All the domains users and all our users will create in the DC. So that is the reason the DC they will take the backup, or maybe they will backend, they will use the continuously synchronization to the another data center. So what they will do generally, they will take the backup and they will distribute the different region if the region is down. From the database perspective, we are maintaining the another copy to the another region. If something goes from one region, another region, the data copies are maintaining, and this is also individual. So that is the reason always enable AOAG we can achieve through the always and availability with disaster recovery. So most of the people will get confused. Disaster recovery. So this is the disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is like my entire region outage. So that time, how can we access? So because if you proper design, okay, if you keep the region and the different region, then we can achieve the disaster recovery. But I'm concentrating about the only high availability. One VM goes, another VM will come up online, like maintain the copies, we can maintain. That is a high availability. So high availability we can achieve through backup and restore, replication, mirroring, uh, clustering as well. But disaster recovery we can achieve from the here. And yeah, so this is the how can we achieve for the disaster recovery. So one more thing is like now we'll go for the comparisons. So the comparisons is like always an AG we can maintain more copies compared to mirroring. We have a automatic failover and we have a manual failover, and we can take the backups on the secondary replica databases, but with the limitation of the editions, and we can allow the read-only connections with the limitation of the edition which we are going to configure, and we can maintain more copies compared to the mirroring. So this is the main advantage for the always on AG. So the thing is like the always on AG replacing from the replication. Why? Because the replication is mainly for the reporting purpose, right? So that means we have to configure the replication, and the read-only connection we are providing to the another server. So if we configure the always on AG, what will happen? It is providing two benefits. One is high availability, and as well as it is providing the uh, read-only ability, but with limitation of the edition. If you going to use standard edition, that standard edition, it is not providing the two things. One is backup, we cannot take it in the replica database, and we cannot use the read-only connection to the standard. So let me stop the recording. Then I will go for the standard and enterprise edition replica. What I meant to say, uh, part. Okay. Then we'll go for a topic, other topics as well. Oh, 7:30. But let me complete this topic. What we can do tomorrow also. Let me stop it. I don't want to.